Picture this, a blank canvas and a mind full of ideas, yet the paintbrush remains untouched. It reminds me of a time not too long ago when I found myself in a similar situation. A brilliant idea for a painting had popped into my head, and I was all set to bring it to life. But then something strange happened. Each time I tried to start, I found myself delaying the process. There was always something else that needed my attention, some distraction that seemed more urgent than my art. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. You have a great idea for a song, a story, a design, or any other creative project. You can almost see the masterpiece in your mind's eye. But when it comes to actually getting started, something holds you back. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, or I just need to do a bit more research first. But tomorrow comes and goes, and the research never seems to end. This is a common phenomenon, especially among us creatives. We're full of ideas, full of passion, and full of the desire to create. We're itching to pour our hearts out onto the canvas, the page, or whatever medium we use to express ourselves. Yet there's often a resistance, a kind of invisible force that stops us from taking that first step. It's ironic, isn't it? Having the desire to create, but also the resistance to get started. This is the push and pull that we often experience, the internal conflict that can be both frustrating and confusing. It's like being caught in a tug-of-war between our creative aspirations and our reluctance to act on them. This, my friends, is what I like to call the paradox of procrastination. It's a challenge that many of us face, and it's something that can really hinder our creative process. But the good news is, it's not insurmountable. With understanding and the right strategies, we can overcome this paradox and truly flourish in our creative endeavors. And that, my friends, is the paradox of procrastination. Procrastination isn't just a matter of willpower or laziness. There's a science behind it. Let's delve into the fascinating world of our minds to understand why we procrastinate. At the heart of this behavior, you'll find two components of our brain at odds: the prefrontal cortex, our brain's rational decision maker, and the limbic system, our pleasure-seeking instant gratification center. Our prefrontal cortex is like a sensible, mature individual. It understands the value of long-term rewards and the importance of tasks that might be a little tedious now, but will pay off in the future. This is the part of our brain that encourages us to start working on that art project or write the first chapter of our novel. However, the limbic system is akin to a fun-loving, impulsive teenager. It prioritizes immediate satisfaction and pleasure, often at the expense of long-term benefits. It's the limbic system that tempts us to watch one more episode of our favorite show instead of picking up our paintbrushes or pens. Here's the catch. The limbic system, being one of the oldest and most dominant parts of our brain, often overpowers the prefrontal cortex. This neurological tug-of-war results in what we call procrastination. When the immediate pleasure of doing something else wins over the long-term satisfaction of completing a task, we find ourselves stuck in the procrastination pit. Understanding this internal conflict is the first step to tackling procrastination. It's not about berating ourselves for lack of willpower or discipline. It's about acknowledging that our brains are wired in a certain way and working with, not against, this wiring. We can start by creating an environment that helps our prefrontal cortex win the battle more often. This could mean removing distractions, breaking down tasks into smaller, more manageable parts, or finding ways to make the task more enjoyable. By understanding the science behind procrastination, we can better equip ourselves to overcome it. As the saying goes, knowing the enemy gives us a better chance at the battle. Now that we understand why we procrastinate, let's learn to identify the traps. First up on our list is the fear of failure. It's a common stumbling block, particularly for creatives. Picture this. You're a painter, and you have a blank canvas in front of you. The endless possibilities can be exciting, but they can also be overwhelming. This fear of making a mistake, of not meeting expectations, can prevent you from making that first brushstroke. But remember, every great masterpiece started with that one uncertain stroke. Next, we have perfectionism, a close cousin of the fear of failure. For instance, you're a writer and you're working on a novel. You've written a chapter, but it's not perfect. You spend hours, days, weeks tweaking every sentence, every word. You're stuck in an endless loop of edits. Perfectionism in this case isn't about striving for excellence, but being trapped in the fear of imperfection. It's important to remember that perfection is subjective, and what matters is progress, not perfection. Then there's the feeling of being overwhelmed, a common trap that many of us fall into. Imagine you're a musician composing a symphony. There are so many elements to consider: the melody, the harmony, the rhythm. It's easy to feel swamped and not know where to start. This overwhelming feeling can paralyze us into inaction. However, breaking down the task into smaller, manageable parts can help us navigate through this trap. Finally, we have the trap of underestimating time. This is when we think a task will take less time than it actually does. For instance, you're a sculptor, and you think you can finish your sculpture in 2 days. When it doesn't happen, you feel frustrated and decide to put it off. To avoid this trap, it's crucial to realistically estimate the time required for a task and account for potential roadblocks. Recognizing these traps is the first step to avoid falling into them. Remember, it's about acknowledging these traps, understanding them, and then crafting a strategy to navigate around them. In the next scene, we'll delve into strategies to overcome procrastination. Stay tuned. It's time to equip ourselves with the tools to conquer procrastination. Firstly, let's focus on breaking tasks into smaller parts. Think of it as a puzzle. Each piece might seem insignificant on its own, but together, they create a complete picture. If you're working on a novel, break it down into chapters. If you're creating a painting, focus on one section at a time. This makes the task seem less daunting and more manageable. Next, let's talk about deadlines. Now, I know the word deadline can seem intimidating, but it's really just a tool to help us stay on track. Set firm, realistic deadlines for each of your small tasks. Make sure to give yourself enough time to complete them without rushing. Deadlines serve as a tangible reminder of our progress and help us maintain momentum. Now, onto environment. This is crucial. Create a conducive environment for work. This could mean clearing your workspace of distractions, or maybe it means finding a quiet place where you can focus. Everyone's ideal environment is different, so take some time to figure out what works best for you. Remember the importance of starting. This might seem obvious, but it's often the hardest step. It's easy to get caught up in the planning phase, but at some point we have to take the plunge and just start. Even the smallest step is progress. Write that first sentence, sketch that first line. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be a start. Finally, be kind to yourself. Progress is progress, no matter how small. Celebrate your victories, even the little ones. Did you write a paragraph today? Fantastic. Did you sketch a rough outline? Brilliant. Every step forward is a step in the right direction. Remember, the longest journey begins with a single step. So take that step today and let's start this journey together. Overcoming procrastination isn't a one-time battle, it's a continuous journey. Yes, you've heard this before, but it's true. It's a journey where maintaining momentum and staying motivated are your constant companions and allies. Once you've started, the trick is to keep going. Think of your motivation as a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts off small, but as it rolls, it gathers more snow, growing bigger and faster. That's your momentum. It's the force that keeps you moving forward, even when the hill ahead looks steep. It's the energy that fuels your creative engine, allowing you to push through the challenges and accomplish your goals. But how do you maintain this momentum? Well, it's all about consistency. It's about showing up every day even when you don't feel like it. It's about establishing routines and habits that support your creativity rather than hinder it. And it's about understanding that progress is progress, no matter how small. And speaking of small, let's talk about victories. Those tiny wins that might seem insignificant but are actually incredibly important. Celebrate them. Every time you resist the urge to procrastinate, every time you choose creativity over distraction, every time you make progress on your project, that's a victory. And it deserves to be celebrated. Now let's talk about kindness. Yes, kindness. Be kind to yourself during this process. Don't beat yourself up if you falter or fall. Instead, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again. And remember, it's okay to experiment. Try different strategies, see what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to overcoming procrastination. Finally, let's not forget about motivation. How do you stay motivated? Well, it's about finding your why. Why do you want to create? What's driving you? Keep that why at the forefront of your mind. Let it inspire you and drive you forward. Remember, creativity is a journey, not a race. And in this journey, overcoming procrastination is your secret weapon. So strap on your boots and let's continue this journey together.